class picking and tier list guide for hardcore servers. Now, I've said before, I think I know what I'm gonna play. I think I know what I'm gonna do with hardcore. Probably going mage, mainly fire mage. It's what I played back in the vanilla days. I did play hunter too, but I think I'm gonna go mage. But let's see what this tier list talks about and how it ranks the different
Alright guys,
classes.
today we're making an ultimate class tier list for hardcore servers. Now the thing you need to understand about making a tier list is it comes with its own complications. We actually made this
I'm not
tier
gonna die.
list on
I'm going all the way
stream,
level
and
60
what
for
became
sure.
very clear to me is it's absolutely impossible to get everyone to agree on one tier list.
Yeah, that's
Nonetheless,
true,
I have given it my best shot. This is the tier list that
I'll give my
the
opinion
majority
on how
of
this
people
turns out.
did
We'll
agree
see.
with. But remember to only take this tier list with a pinch of salt, as a rough indication of what classes are going to be better than others. Generally, the further you go up the tier list, you're basically less likely to die and
So
when it
easier
comes to the
classes are going to be at the top.
challenge, there's so many different variables to
F
consider.
tier
It's
DK.
much more difficult than just evaluating classes based on leveling speed.
They certainly wouldn't be
Because
if they were
with-
in
A
classic.
classic example is for Druid. Like, Druid are really good at leveling in the open world, but when they go into caves, they're at much more risk because they can't use entangling routes while indoors. So their main way of
I
escaping
had
death
no idea that was
has
true.
been taken
What?
away from them. So as you can see, it does get pretty complicated.
Damn.
The hardcore challenge really is a challenge of your patience as a player.
It's a challenge
And
for
certain
noobs.
classes are going to be more punishing
not gonna die.
if you have less patience. Some classes are just better adapted to a player's impatience. I can tell you now, if you're impatient while playing a warrior, you're very likely
gonna
to
die.
die.
Yeah,
if
you're
you're
gonna die.
impatient while playing a hunter, you can probably still survive by sacrificing your
fiend
pet.
death.
And no matter how patient you are, what will inevitably happen is bad RNG. You will end up in very sticky situations where you pull more mobs than you intended to do. And then certain classes are just better at dealing with sticky, bad RNG situations than other classes.
Mage is probably
so
very good at
this is how we
that.
evaluate classes in a hardcore
Frost,
tier list.
Nova, and just,
How much does
beating
it
the shit out
forgive
of
you
things.
for being
Kiting.
impatient and trying to rush? And secondly, how good is the class at dealing with bad situations? And we also need to evaluate how certain classes are more prone to making stupid mistakes.
Sure.
So this is the tier
Okay.
list that we came up with on stream. We also did agree
Move my-
that certain classes can definitely move up and down depending on player skill and also depending on different situations, like
Okay.
whether you're in a cave, whether you're in the open world, or dungeons. But we agreed this is a pretty cozy list, and it's going to be particularly useful for people who are new to the hardcore challenge. The higher up the list, you probably are going to be more likely to survive.
Sure.
One way that you can
he has
massively
Warlock as S
increase
tier.
the chances of you actually
I mean,
surviving
that makes
is
sense.
getting the rest of the XP.
Warlock S tier, that makes sense because you basically you get the pet, the hunter pet plus the mage, glass cannon, DPS shit down quickly, survivability. Also, you get health stones. You cannot use a soul stone. We already know that. That's a classic, hardcore rule. But yeah, I definitely see. Okay, Warlock utilities top tier plus their survivability plus their ability to use pets. That makes sense. Mage, Druid. We're gonna go through this whole list, I guess. Okay, Warrior is the hardest. Wow. Yeah, I guess so.
Surviving is getting the rest of
So
the
far, I
XP
think I agree with that list.
hardcore version of a leveling add-on, because that will tell you the ultimate, best, safest route to level up while doing a hardcore challenge. It's made by people who have absolutely no life the hardcore challenge for the past 3 years. So definitely check that out in the description down below. You can get a discount code with MetaGoblin. So S tier, we all agreed that the Warlock is just build diff. The Warlock is just slightly better
Yeah.
than every other
It
class in
is.
the game, and I think most people would agree
It's
on
bullshit,
this.
that's what it
now,
is.
if you're going patiently and just going one mob at a time with the drain tank build, you would have to try pretty hard to die doing that, because you just have so much ridiculous
myself up here.
survivability. You're just it's almost like having your own personal pocket healer constantly. Your
Right.
pet takes most of the damage, and then you're going to drain your
So Warlock
health
is
into
for
mana,
pusses,
but then also just
basically.
get the
You want to be a
with drain
bitch
life anyway.
and make it
You
as
can
easy as
sacrifice
possible. You
your
play
pet
Warlock.
if you need to run away, whether you're going to use the pet to absorb aggro of everyone away, or you can actually physically sacrifice the pet with the, Void Walker sacrifice ability, which is a huge bubble on the Warlock. And you can also cast during it.
Warlocks are bullshit in retail.
Hearthstone, if you wanted to. By the way, guys, if you want to totally remaster the graphics of the classic era client, I have a very simple and detailed
this may made a full document.
All subscribers can basically get access to. If you just subscribe to the channel and check my subscriber only trailer, you will find it there. For A tier, first of all, we have the Mage. Now, the Mage
probably
is
what I'm going to play.
If you play patiently and you play very well, you shouldn't actually ever take damage, realistically, because you've got Frost Nova and Frost Bolt to kite the mob infinitely.
Yeah.
If you're doing stupid AoE stuff,
blink away and kite,
likely to die, particularly if you're new to playing a mage. It's not something I'd recommend when doing a hardcore challenge unless you're some kind of Giga Chad or you're actually insane. You should just level normally as a mage and just level in Frost and keep it safe. You also have
Here's the thing. Frost is the safest, but I do think I'm going to go Fire. I enjoy playing Fire more than Frost. Plus, it's a vanilla WoW. I mean, you could spec into both a little bit, but I feel like I'm going to go more Fire and just go Glass Cannon, see how well I could just blast shit down before it gets to me. I don't know. I always enjoyed Fire the most of all the mage specs.
To very easily evade enemies. And then eventually
blink it to another pack of mobs.
Now, the great thing about the Druid is that they don't use
I'm going to take a poll in chat when I start.
We'll see. Into cat form,
we'll see how much people believe in me.
They're always saving their mana. They pretty much always have mana to heal themselves, which makes their survivability just great.
Yeah, Druid, the self-healing is pretty good for Druid.
I wouldn't personally put them in S tier, is you can't use Nature's Grasp and Tangling Roots in an interior location. So when you are in interior locations, it's scary. It's much more scary than playing other classes, like for instance the Paladin, because a lot of time as a Paladin, when you're in the interior location, you can bubble Hearth out if things get sticky.
You cannot. Bubble Hearth will not be available in classic hardcore official servers. Blizzard said that in their Wowcast, their podcast. They said Bubble Hearth will not be available. When you have Bubble active, Hearth will be unavailable to click. So Bubble Hearth will not be happening. But you can still bubble and you have healing. You can bubble and heal yourself up. That's going to be something that's available. So yeah, Paladin's still A tier.
The Paladin
Plus
has
they get a free mount, man. Same with Warlocks. Damn, Warlocks get everything. It's such
difficult
bullshit.
Situations where you pull too many enemies. Warlocks. The only real reason why I would put a Paladin lower than a Druid is because they have to hard cast their heals, which can be irritating, particularly if you have two mobs on you.
Yeah, they don't have dot heals like Druids do.
Heal off, whereas a Druid can just cast instant hots. Now, the Hunter, you might be surprised, well, why is the Hunter not in S tier? Well, the reason why we put in the Hunter in S tier is because if you actually look at hardcore statistics, a lot of people die on the Hunter. In fact, let me get that up right now. As you can see, a lot of people die playing Hunter.
Well, a lot of people die on Hunter, but also a lot of people play Hunter. Let's be honest with ourselves. Most noobs play Hunters. That's a fact in hardcore. That's a fact in regular classic. That's a fact in retail. Everybody knows if a boss gets pulled early, who did it? The Hunter. Everybody knows if somebody dies early, who died? The Hunter. Everybody knows the entire party wipes in a Mythic Plus. Whose fault is it with pulling the extra mob? The Hunter. Okay, it's usually noobs playing Hunters. That's just what happens. Most of us, our first character was a Hunter. So I don't know if looking at this statistics tells the truth. I still think Hunter is probably one of the easier. It could be S tier, honestly.
Nearly 20% of all deaths are people playing Hunter. I think that's because people
think woke up and chose
Hunter
violence this morning.
is great because they have a pet. Yes, that is true. And the problem is the pet very often can get you killed.
Yeah, I think this death rate is more
when I recently did the
more of an indication of who plays Hunter.
My pet ended up not jumping down with me or porting down to me like they normally do, and end up going a long way and pulling about 50 mobs. You got to be careful of situations like that. You really do need to perfect pet control. And then, yes, the Hunter is very strong because they do have a pet.
Yeah, they do.
The Priest are...
The one thing I will say I hate about Hunters back in Classic is buying arrows or bullets. I used to run out all the time. That'd be one shitty-ass reason to die, but I used to run out all the time.
Surprisingly
and I was always broke.
Beefy for a Clothy caster. a lot of the time they are in a bubble and they barely take any damage. And
preset bubbles, self-heals, all that
primarily
shit.
rely on their wand to do DPS. They normally always have mana
Wanding shit to
available for when they do get into sticky situations. The only issue is when your bubble is on cooldown and inner fire has fallen off, then you are very, very squishy. And if you run out of mana, yeah, that is going to get
probably
difficult.
dead.
Yes, you can Psychic Scream to escape enemies, but Psychic Scream comes with its own risks because it is a fear ability. And sometimes you really just cannot use it.
Fear mobs into other mobs.
Your situation even worse. Whereas a Paladin, for example, can Divine Shield and bubble out, if you know what I mean, when they're in sticky situations where they've run out of mana.
It's true.
Now, we disputed a lot whether the Shaman is better than the Rogue. I think the Shaman and Rogue are pretty equal. Now,
I'm surprised. Rogue has a lot of, vanish and all that shit. Rogue is a avoidance too. I'm surprised Rogue is not an A tier. Rogue has a lot of survivability to it. It's an interesting one. Let's see what he says.
They have so many tools to escape death.
Yeah.
And to make their lives easier. And their damage is really good, particularly when you get the precision talent, because obviously that increases your hit pretty much to the point where you are never going to miss with your main hand or your abilities. And if you're really patient and only ever enter difficult situations when you have Vanish available, then yeah, it'll be pretty difficult to die on.
I actually don't think the tier list is that far off. I think it's pretty good.
You are banging trouble. Now, the reason why the Shaman isn't in A tier is because a lot of their casts, well, pretty much all their healing abilities apart from Totem, they're all hard casted. And one of the problems with that is you don't have any shields or anything to
Shaman also, don't they, in Classic? If I remember right, and I played Alliance. I never played Horde in Classic back when it was vanilla WoW. But don't Shamans wear leather until like level 40? Then they can wear mail. So they are more squishy at a lower level. Hunters do too, I believe. That was like a big thing in vanilla WoW. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think yeah, that's true. Yeah, so they're squishier at lower levels. Yeah, I imagine Shaman being difficult, for sure.
So if you have a couple of mobs on you, it's going to take you ages to get a healing ability off. They do get much stronger at level 40 when they can equip mail gear, because that's when they get much more
I could have just watched the video and he would have said it.
You do also have Earthbind Totem, which can be very useful at escaping enemies.
Same with Warriors, I think, and Paladins. They wore mail until 40, then they could wear Flate.
So one of the issues in the original Classic is Earthbind would keep re-leashing the enemy. So yes, it slows the enemy, but then it resets the mob to the point where, like, basically it's just gonna...
That kind of sucks,
It's gonna make the mob run after you for much longer and much further. But now that doesn't necessarily happen as bad, if that makes sense. Because mobs will have a maximum range where they will eventually give up running after you. And lastly, we have the Warrior. Now, there are some great things about playing a Warrior. I wouldn't be discouraged by playing a Warrior just because I've put it in C tier.
It's the harvest. That's what everyone says.
Quite strong.
And I agree with this.
Great damage, first of all. They do kill mobs very fast. It's just they have, no self-healing.
Yeah, and they have to be in the dick of it.
Cooldowns,
literally in the dick of things.
And they don't really have any escape tools apart from Hamstring and Fear.
Yeah.
Which are obviously not that great, particularly as Fear can sometimes make.
And again, more squishy until level 40 too. I think, if I remember right, I believe Warriors wear mail until level 40, then they can equip Plate. And Warriors are extremely gear dependent, especially Classic Warriors. Extremely, of all these, they are the most gear dependent. So if you're early on, you're squishier, which is essentially your only survivability tactic is to be less squishy. Early Warrior is probably very hard to do. And if you pull an extra mob, you're fucked. You're fucked.
Even worse. And this is the reason why when I leveled a Warrior, I actually leveled it in Protection. Now that might seem crazy, like that's just going to take so long.
More survivable, I guess.
It doesn't, because you take much less damage, which means you stop and eat much less. So really, it just feels as fast as leveling a normal spec Warrior like Fury or Arms. Plus, you have great cooldowns like Concussion Blow, 5-second stun. You have a stun chance on Revenge. You also have Last Stand, which is a huge HP cooldown. In the lower levels, you actually have a kick ability to obviously interrupt casters because you're using a shield and you can just use...
Man, but leveling as a prot warrior, wouldn't that be like watching paint dry?
Shield bash.
That sounds boring as shit.
So yeah, my advice is don't knock leveling as a protection warrior, particularly as just having a shield equipped.
If I did level as a warrior, I probably would level as a prot warrior, but man, that just sounds like that would take forever.
You will find yourself
leveling as blood is the same, but blood can heal itself at least.
Or in less.
You wouldn't be having to stop and eat ever. Blood I think would actually be much quicker, because you never have to eat as a blood DK. You would just self heal at the end of a fight, every fight, and pull the next mob instantly. It'd be insta pulls always.
Every situation.
What the hell? Yeah, so the video does just cut off. Okay, I was not tripping. I was not losing my mind. The video does just cut off. I think the tier list was pretty good. I think it's pretty well done. Definitely Warlock is S tier, that's for sure. For sure, I agree with all of these. Although I do think Hunter could be moved up into S tier as well. Hunter's a pretty good leveling spec, pretty good leveling class. And I do think between these two B, I think Rogue could be moved up into A. Rogue is extremely survivable. I understand, like you guys were saying, early Rogue is squishy. But in terms of just getting away from death or making a mistake and being able to still survive, Rogue is one of the best at doing that. But overall, I think this is a pretty good list. And most likely, I'm playing Mage. Fire Mage. That's right. Can't wait. All the way to 60, no doubt.